The stars were calm, but not for long. Across the galaxy, the Zarkonian Empire had been growing for centuries, conquering one planet after another. Their fleets were the largest ever built by any civilization, but even their vast experience did not prepare them for what waited on a small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Tharok, leader of the 164-ship Zarkonian Armada, felt a strange thrill as his ships approached the solar system. The fleet was enormous. Warships, carriers, and specialized assault vessels, all gleaming with the latest energy shields and weapons technology. Every Zarkonian under his command was certain of victory. To them, humans were primitive. They lived on a water-covered planet with slow-moving armies and weak technology. Surely, they thought, this conquest would be as easy as taking the next planet in line. The bridge of the flagship Dread Sovereign was alive with activity. Officers scanned the space ahead, plotting trajectories, confirming weapons status, and coordinating communications with the other 163 ships. The fleet moved in perfect formation, a river of power flowing toward the tiny blue dot below. "This will be another triumph for the Zarkonian Empire," Tharok said aloud. His voice carried through the command deck, filled with confidence. "No resistance, no surprises. Earth will surrender, and we will add another jewel to our crown." The officers nodded, their multi-limbed forms adjusting controls and recalculating attack sequences. Every sensor readout confirmed the human planet's defenses were basic at best. Some smaller planetary systems had more advanced weaponry than this little world. But even as they approached, unseen forces began to stir. On Earth, humans were watching. Earth scientists, engineers, and military strategists had noticed unusual signals weeks before, fluctuating sensor readings, strange energy pulses, and patterns that suggested an approaching fleet of immense size. The world's governments had met in secret, exchanging intelligence and activating plans that few outside their inner circles would ever see. The humans had one advantage: their ingenuity. While their ships were small, their weapons often improvised, and their minds quick and adaptable. They did not rely solely on brute force. They relied on creativity. And this time, that creativity would be tested. In orbit above Earth, the human command centers were ready. Cities had hidden underground facilities, and satellites formed a quiet web of intelligence. The humans had built the adaptive quantum shield system in secrecy, a technology capable of bending and controlling energy fields in ways the Zarkonians could not detect. Only a few in the galaxy had ever seen anything like it. As the fleet entered the inner solar system, the humans watched. They did not panic. They had prepared for this moment. Across the globe, citizens went about their lives, oblivious to the storm approaching from the stars. Only a few scientists and military officers knew the truth. Today, Earth would face its greatest challenge. Back on the flagship, Tharok's excitement grew. "Prepare the messages," he ordered. "Send our terms of surrender. Let them know their fate. This will take only moments." Communication officers transmitted holographic signals toward the surface. Humans received them within minutes. The messages were simple, demanding immediate surrender under the threat of total annihilation. "Your resistance is futile," one holographic figure declared. "Surrender or be destroyed." The humans responded differently. Their reply was short but firm. "We do not fear you. Prepare to see why humans endure." The Zarkonians laughed. "How quaint," said Tharok. "Primitive words. No planet has ever dared defy us like this and lived." The fleet continued its approach, confident. They scanned for weapons, shields, or fleets, but saw none. All sensors reported nothing beyond the usual planetary emissions. Humans seemed weak, unprepared, and ordinary. What the Zarkonians did not know was that humans had been preparing for decades. Every major city had underground bunkers, every coastline had sensor arrays, and every advanced laboratory had AI systems capable of controlling defense networks faster than any alien mind could comprehend. At the edge of Earth's orbit, the first human ships appeared. They were not massive. They were old, small, and seemingly fragile. Yet each one was equipped with adaptive technology capable of cloaking, redirecting energy, and confusing sensors. The Zarkonians barely noticed at first. "Scouts," Tharok said dismissively. "They cannot harm us." But the scouts moved with incredible speed, weaving through asteroid belts, hiding in planetary shadows, and observing the massive fleet without being detected. They transmitted information back to human command centers on the surface. Every ship's position, every weapon charge, every communication protocol was being studied and cataloged in real time. Humans did not plan to fight in open space. They had no fleet capable of direct confrontation. Instead, they used deception, agility, and intelligence. They set up holographic decoys that mimicked Earth's cities and weapons arrays, making the Zarkonians believe the planet was heavily fortified. In the Dread Sovereign's command room, alarms suddenly blared. "What is this?" an officer shouted. "Multiple readings! Ships disappearing from sensors! What is happening?" Tharok's confidence wavered slightly. "Check all systems! This must be a technical error. Humans cannot do this." But it was not an error. As the first of the human adaptive quantum shields activated, the Zarkonian sensors began to fail. Entire squadrons appeared to vanish from the fleet's instruments. Communications cut out randomly. Ships collided as invisible forces altered their trajectories. Chaos began to spread through the fleet. "What is happening?" one officer screamed. "We are losing coordination. Entire groups are disappearing." Tharok felt a cold shiver run through him. His arrogance was meeting a challenge it had never faced. Humans, small, fragile, seemingly weak humans, were manipulating the battlefield in ways no Zarkonian had imagined. On Earth's surface, humans watched with calm determination. Scientists monitored the fleet, adjusting shields, redirecting energy flows, and creating invisible traps. They had learned from every simulation, every test, every possible scenario. And now, the culmination of their efforts was unfolding in real time. The Zarkonians did not understand what hit them. Every attempt to regroup only caused further confusion. Their fleet, once a river of unstoppable power, was now disorganized, fragile, and chaotic. Ships that had moved with perfect synchronization just minutes ago were colliding, disabling one another and drifting out of formation. Tharok's face, once full of confidence, now showed concern. "Signal every ship," he ordered. "Re-establish formation. This is impossible." But it was not impossible. It was human ingenuity. The adaptive quantum shields were not just defensive, they were strategic, predictive, and adaptive. Every action by the Zarkonians was met with a counteraction, every movement anticipated and neutralized before it could take effect. Hours passed in what seemed like seconds. The Zarkonian fleet, meant to conquer a planet with ease, found itself trapped in invisible energy webs. Some ships collided. Others drifted silently into space, their crews powerless to correct their course. Panic spread as reports of missing ships and disabled systems reached every flagship. Meanwhile, humans continued to study the fleet. Every data point collected added to their understanding, allowing the shields to adapt, the decoys to improve, and the entire defense network to respond faster than any alien technology could comprehend. And yet, humanity remained calm. They did not celebrate or gloat. They observed, learned, and prepared for the next phase. They had faced the impossible and had already begun turning it into an advantage. From the surface of Earth, one thought prevailed. Humans may be small, but they were clever. They may be weaker, but their minds were sharper. And when faced with overwhelming odds, humans did what they always did. They adapted, they endured, and they found a way to survive. The first stage of the invasion was over, but the story of 164 ships vanishing from sight had just begun. Across the galaxy, the tale would be told again and again. Do not underestimate humanity. For the first time, Earth had shown that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the greatest of threats. As night fell over the planet, humans continued their watch. Above, the remnants of the Zarkonian fleet drifted in confusion, unable to comprehend how a small, insignificant world had turned the tide in a matter of hours. And below, humanity waited, ready for whatever came next. This was only the beginning. The morning sun rose over Earth, casting its golden light across oceans, mountains, and cities. But the people below remained unaware of the true danger that had arrived in the skies above. Far beyond the planet's orbit, the Zarkonian armada, 164 massive ships strong, drifted in confusion. Their sensors were unreliable, their formations broken, and their commanders frantic. Admiral Tharok stood on the bridge of the Dread Sovereign, trying to restore order. "This cannot be happening," he said, his multi-limbed form tense. "We have never faced a planet like this. Every system is failing. Every squadron is lost." His officers scrambled. "Sir, entire fleets are disappearing from our scanners. Communications are cut. Our weapons systems are malfunctioning." Tharok's eyes narrowed. He had expected resistance, perhaps even some human ingenuity. But this was beyond anything the Zarkonians had ever faced. He had been so sure that humans were primitive, slow, and weak. Now that overconfidence had become a dangerous weakness. Back on Earth, the humans were calm and organized. Scientists, engineers, and military leaders monitored the fleet's movements in real time. The adaptive quantum shield system had done its work, and now it was time to guide the Zarkonians into the next stage of the trap. From underground command centers, humans manipulated energy fields, creating invisible pathways and obstacles. Ships that had thought they were safely moving forward suddenly drifted off course. Weapons misfired, communications garbled. It was as if the stars themselves were conspiring against the invaders. Small human scout ships moved like shadows, weaving around debris and planetary rings. They were not strong individually, but together they acted as messengers, sensors, and decoys. They relayed critical information back to the surface, updating algorithms that calculated the next moves of the enemy fleet with incredible speed. "What are they doing?" a Zarkonian officer cried, panic rising in his voice. "Our formations are useless. Our weapons are failing. This is impossible." Tharok slammed a clawed hand on the control panel. "They are not fighting in the way we understand," he said grimly. "They are adapting. Every time we move, they are ready for us." Humans had studied the Zarkonians for years. They knew every known tactic, every pattern of attack. But they had gone further. Their systems were predictive, learning in real time. Every misstep the Zarkonians made was anticipated and used against them. On the surface, Dr. Elena Ramirez, the lead scientist of the Quantum Shield Project, watched the displays with calm focus. "Phase 2 begins now," she said quietly. Her team activated a series of energy conduits across the globe, linking satellites, underground facilities, and mobile units. The result was a dynamic, ever-changing trap for the invaders above. The first waves of Zarkonian ships were drawn into false paths. Holographic signals created illusions of unprotected planetary sectors, tempting the invaders to move forward. As they advanced, the quantum shields redirected gravitational energy, subtly altering trajectories. Some ships collided. Others were trapped in invisible energy pockets, unable to move. In minutes, entire squadrons were rendered useless. Tharok's orders were frantic. Pull back, regroup, activate emergency protocols. But every attempt to reorganize failed. The humans were always one step ahead. Every move he made was predicted and countered. One of the human scout ships, small and fast, approached a Zarkonian destroyer. Its cloaking system made it invisible until it was almost beside the enemy. Then, with a quick burst of energy, it emitted a signal that caused the destroyer's sensors to overload. Systems crashed, and the ship drifted silently, powerless, into space. The human ship vanished again, leaving no trace of its presence. Tharok's fleet was losing cohesion fast. "They are ghosts!" one officer shouted. "How can a primitive species do this?" Humans had no illusions about the enemy. They knew the Zarkonians were powerful, experienced, and dangerous. But they also knew that brute force was not the answer. Strategy, intelligence, and adaptability would win this fight. And Earth had those in abundance. Across the planet, AI systems coordinated the defense. They calculated probabilities, predicted enemy moves, and suggested solutions in real time. Every command from human leaders was informed by instant feedback from thousands of sensors. Every trap laid was optimized for maximum effect. The Zarkonians tried to retaliate. Energy beams, missiles, and disruptor pulses were fired toward the planet. But the quantum shields absorbed, redirected, or neutralized each attack. Not a single human life was at risk. To the Zarkonians, it must have seemed like the planet itself had grown weapons out of thin air. Meanwhile, hidden human squads moved across strategic points on Earth's surface. They ensured that vital infrastructure remained protected and that energy systems powering the shields remained uninterrupted. Every human contribution, no matter how small, was part of the larger plan. Tharok realized that attacking blindly was no longer an option. He convened a council of his top officers. "We must think differently," he said. "We cannot fight what we cannot understand. We must find a new way to regain control." The officers suggested various strategies: splitting the fleet, using overwhelming firepower, or retreating to regroup. Tharok shook his head. Every option seemed doomed. The humans were too clever, too fast, and too coordinated. Every decision made against them was anticipated. As hours passed, more ships vanished or were incapacitated. From the Dread Sovereign, Tharok could see entire squadrons drifting silently, their crews trapped in failing systems, unable to respond. Panic spread like wildfire. Orders were ignored, misinterpreted, or simply impossible to execute. On Earth, humans monitored the chaos calmly. "They are following the pattern we predicted," Dr. Ramirez said. "Every mistake they make strengthens our position." The humans were not seeking destruction. They studied the enemy, observing technology, tactics, and decision-making processes. Every lost Zarkonian ship provided valuable data. Humans recorded energy patterns, shield designs, and propulsion systems. Knowledge they knew was as powerful as any weapon. The Zarkonians, once confident in their superiority, were now trapped in a maze they could not navigate. Invisible barriers, altered trajectories, and holographic decoys made every step dangerous. Ships that had moved with certainty just minutes ago now hesitated, their crews unsure of where to go or what to do. "Prepare to fire at will," one officer shouted. "We must destroy the planet." Tharok hesitated. Every attack they had launched so far had failed. Every strike had been countered before it could reach its target. The humans were not just defending, they were controlling the battlefield. Every energy pulse, every maneuver, every strategy was part of a larger, invisible trap. The fleet's confidence crumbled. Orders became frantic. Voices raised in anger and fear. Ships collided, disabled each other, or drifted into energy pockets created by the quantum shields. Some crews panicked, abandoning their stations or freezing in place. From a human perspective, it was almost too easy. The preparation of decades, the secret inventions, and the careful observation of the Zarkonians had created a perfect storm. Humans had learned that direct confrontation was unnecessary. All that was needed was control, patience, and the ability to adapt faster than the enemy could react. Tharok realized that the humans were not just defending, they were teaching. Every failure of his fleet was a lesson in strategy, a demonstration of human ingenuity. He had underestimated them, and now he faced the consequences. By nightfall, a clear pattern had emerged. The Zarkonian fleet, once a river of unstoppable power, was fragmented and confused. Entire groups had vanished from sensors, disabled by invisible traps or collisions. Communications were unreliable. Morale was shattered. And humans were ready for the next phase. The traps were not finished. The shields still active, and the scouts still weaving through space, invisible and deadly in their precision. Dr. Ramirez looked at her team. "They are beginning to understand what humans can do," she said quietly. "And they will not like it." Above, the Zarkonian fleet struggled to regroup. Tharok's pride, once unshakable, was now tempered by fear. His overconfidence had brought him here, to a place where a small blue planet had turned his armada into a trap without firing a single traditional weapon. And yet, the humans were calm. They knew that this was only the beginning. The real lesson, they understood, would come when the Zarkonians tried to retreat, or when they made the next mistake. The trap had been set. The overconfident armada had walked right into it, and the humans waited, ready to guide the outcome with intelligence, strategy, and unity. In the darkness of space, the first signs of total Zarkonian failure were appearing. Ships drifting in random orbits, collisions, disabled engines. The once great armada was now a shadow of its former self, and Earth, small and fragile-looking from space, remained untouched. Its greatest weapon was not firepower or size, but the minds of its people, working together, anticipating every move, and adapting faster than any alien could imagine. This was the lesson the Zarkonians would learn too late. Intelligence, creativity, and unity could overcome even the largest, strongest fleet in the galaxy. And as the first day of the invasion ended, humans prepared for the next stage. The trap was working, the armada was weakening, and the story of 164 ships disappearing was far from over. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. The sun had set over the oceans and cities of Earth, painting the sky with deep reds and golds, but above, the war in space had only just begun. The Zarkonian armada, once a symbol of unstoppable power, drifted in confusion. Ships that had been part of tight formations now floated like scattered leaves in the void. Their sensors failed constantly, communications were broken, and panic simmered in every command room. Admiral Tharok paced the bridge of the dread sovereign. His pride had been shattered. "We underestimated them," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "We thought they were weak, but humans, they are unpredictable. Every move we make is anticipated. Every plan we devise fails before it begins." His officers nodded in agreement, though few dared to meet his eyes. Some ships were already drifting out of control, invisible energy fields distorting their course. Collisions had disabled multiple vessels, and the fleet's formation was effectively broken. On Earth, humans monitored every movement. The quantum shield network continued to operate flawlessly, bending energy fields, redirecting the Zarkonian fleet's weapons, and making invisible traps that ensnared their ships. The shields were not simply defensive, they were adaptive, predictive, and relentless. Dr. Elena Ramirez stood in the central command room with her team of scientists and military strategists. The display screens in front of her glowed with hundreds of dots, representing the Zarkonian ships. Each dot moved as if it had a mind of its own, yet every movement was guided by the humans' calculations. "They're trying to regroup," Dr. Ramirez said. pointing at a cluster of dots that had begun to move toward a perceived weak point in the human defenses. But the trap is still active. Their engines will fail before they even reach it. Her assistant, a young engineer named Kiran, adjusted a control panel. "We're feeding the shield system predictive models," he explained. "It's learning faster than they can react. Every time they try to escape, we adapt their path without them knowing it." In the void of space, the Zarkonians attempted their next move. Dozens of ships fired energy beams toward Earth, hoping to disable the shield systems or force the humans to reveal themselves. But every attack was carefully monitored and redirected. Beams were bent harmlessly into empty space. Missiles were rerouted and sent careening into disabled Zarkonian ships, systems overloaded. Chaos increased. A small Zarkonian scout ship approached the planet cautiously, attempting to probe the shields. In a few moments, it vanished from sensors. Inside, the crew panicked. Instruments flickered. Controls became unresponsive. They were trapped in a localized energy distortion, unable to move or communicate. The humans had trapped them without firing a single weapon. "Impressive," muttered Dr. Ramirez. "They can't even see our hand in the game. They're blind to what's controlling the battlefield." The humans were not celebrating. Every action was measured, calculated, and purposeful. Every disabled ship provided information that strengthened the system. Their goal was not merely defense, it was learning, adapting, and preparing for the decisive moment. Meanwhile, Tharok's desperation grew. "We cannot continue like this," he shouted to his officers. "We must break free of their influence, find the source of their power." But humans were careful. The shield network was decentralized. It was not in one location. Satellites, underground facilities, mobile units, and even scattered research stations were all linked. The Zarkonians could not destroy it without first understanding it, a task that would take them far longer than they had. As more ships became trapped or disabled, Tharok considered retreat. But even withdrawal was perilous. The quantum shields created invisible corridors and mazes, guiding ships into dead ends, energy traps, or toward other disabled vessels. Every attempt to escape only brought more failure. Dr. Ramirez and her team observed the unfolding chaos. "This is the advantage of intelligence over brute force," she said quietly. "Humans may not be the strongest, but we are the smartest. Every move they make feeds our understanding. Every mistake strengthens us." On the bridge of the dread sovereign, Tharok was growing pale. His pride and confidence, once unshakable, had been replaced by fear. "We must adapt," he shouted. "We must find a solution." But adaptation takes time. And humans had already anticipated that. The shield network reacted instantly. Invisible barriers formed in the paths of retreating ships. Energy pulses created small gravitational distortions, slowing or redirecting them. Collisions were avoided only in rare cases, but even then, ships were delayed, disoriented, and vulnerable. Meanwhile, humans had deployed additional small, cloaked scout ships. They darted between Zarkonian vessels, using minimal energy while feeding critical data back to the shield network. Each human ship acted like a needle, threading through the Armada's confusion, ensuring that every movement reinforced the trap. Inside the human command centers, leaders coordinated carefully. Earth's presidents, generals, and scientists watched the displays silently. Communication between surface teams and underground facilities ensured that every part of the system was working perfectly. "Notice how the fleet tries to maintain formation," said Dr. Ramirez. "They're learning slowly, but they cannot see the invisible maze we have created. Every adjustment they make plays right into our hands." In the void of space, Tharok realized that direct confrontation was impossible. Every attack, every maneuver, every strategy was being neutralized. The humans were controlling the battle without exposing themselves. Every Zarkonian officer understood the truth. They were outmatched, not in strength, but in intelligence. At the same time, humans were not just defending, they were gathering knowledge. Sensors on scout ships and satellites scanned every disabled vessel. Data about propulsion systems, energy weapons, shield designs, and navigation protocols were transmitted in real time. Every captured piece of information increased humanity's advantage. "Every mistake they make, we learn," Kieran said. "They think they are attacking us, but we are controlling the flow of the battle." The Zarkonians tried new tactics. Some ships formed small assault teams, aiming for concentrated attacks to overwhelm the shields. Others attempted to flee toward deep space to regroup, but all were guided by invisible paths laid by human systems. Collisions, energy distortions, and confusion continued to grow. By now, the once proud 164-ship fleet was a fragmented, chaotic force. Ships drifted alone or in small groups, often powerless, sometimes colliding. Entire squads vanished into the invisible traps. The Armada had become a shadow of its former strength. And yet, humans did not relent. Every shield pulse, every diversion, every holographic decoy was calculated to maximize learning and efficiency. Humans were using intelligence to win a fight that raw power could not. In the chaos, Tharok considered the unthinkable. "We may lose this entire fleet," he muttered. "This planet. These humans. They are not what we expected. They are something else entirely." Back on Earth, humans were preparing for the next stage. They had learned everything they could from the Zarkonians' reactions. The shields were operating at maximum efficiency. Energy traps were ready. Scout ships were poised to guide remaining invaders into zones where they could be contained. The humans understood the advantage of patience. They were not rushing. They were not striking blindly. They were controlling, observing, and adapting. Every action the Zarkonians took played into the hands of Earth's defenders, and then came the first signs of decisive results. Entire squadrons were effectively neutralized, not destroyed but trapped, disabled, and rendered powerless. Communications between Zarkonian ships became sporadic, orders ignored, or impossible to execute. Morale collapsed. Tharok watched the fleet unravel with disbelief. "We have never faced this before," he said softly. "Our technology, our tactics, useless. They anticipate everything. They control every aspect of the battle." In truth, it was not magic or overwhelming power that humans used. It was adaptability, intelligence, and unity. Humans had turned every disadvantage into an advantage. They had shown that size, strength, and firepower could be defeated by clever strategy and quick thinking. As night deepened over Earth, the Zarkonian Armada remained trapped in space, struggling, confused, and outmaneuvered. Ships that had once symbolized fear now floated like helpless debris, victims of their own overconfidence, and humans watched, ready for the moment when they would finally turn observation and adaptation into decisive action. The first stage of the invasion was over. The Armada had not been destroyed, but it had been broken, its confidence shattered, and its path controlled by the humans. The stage was set for the final demonstration, a display of human ingenuity that would leave the galaxy in awe. From the shadows of Earth, humans prepared to guide the next steps. Every ship, every shield, every calculation was poised to strike at the heart of the Armada's mistakes. The trap was working perfectly, and the Zarkonians, blinded by arrogance and overconfidence, had no idea what was coming. This was the moment humans had trained for, prepared for, and waited for. The Armada had learned the first lesson: never underestimate Earth. And when the next phase began, the full power of human intelligence, adaptability, and unity would be revealed. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before, a demonstration of what humans could do when facing overwhelming odds. The Armada was trapped, humans were ready, and the story of 164 ships disappearing from space was far from over. The stars above Earth were quiet, yet tension filled the void. The Zarkonian Armada, once a fearsome force of 164 warships, floated in confusion. Their formations were shattered, weapons systems were failing, and communications were near impossible. The overconfidence that had guided them to the edge of the solar system had become their greatest weakness. Admiral Tharok, aboard the Dread Sovereign, paced the command bridge. His claws tapped the control panels, but the screens offered no comfort. Squadrons were missing, ships collided in empty space, and the humans' traps had rendered much of the Armada powerless. "We cannot continue like this," Tharok muttered. "Our empire will not survive this. He stopped, unable to complete the thought. Humans, on the other hand, were calm. From underground command centers, satellites, and cloaked scout ships, they guided the Armada with invisible precision. The adaptive quantum shield system had now fully revealed its potential. It could manipulate energy, space, and trajectories in ways the Zarkonians could neither see nor counter. Dr. Elena Ramirez observed the latest readouts. "We've learned everything we can from them," she said. "Now it's time to turn observation into final control." Kieran, her young assistant, nodded. "The traps are stable, the corridors are ready, and our scouts can guide them into positions where they can't escape." The plan was simple in concept, yet brilliant in execution. The remaining Zarkonian ships would be herded into zones where their power could be neutralized. No direct destruction was necessary. Every collision, every disabled system, every trapped ship would serve as a lesson for the invaders, and a demonstration of human ingenuity. High above the planet, the Armada's commanders tried desperately to regain control. "Form a wedge!" one cried. "Concentrate firepower!" But every attempt failed. Invisible energy currents redirected their ships, guiding them into dead ends or toward other disabled vessels. Attempts to flee were met with carefully calculated interference, nudging ships back into containment zones without direct confrontation. "Where are their reinforcements?" another officer demanded. "They cannot have this level of control." The answer, though impossible for the Zarkonians to grasp, was humans. Not in numbers, not in raw power, but in intelligence, strategy, and unity. They had anticipated every move, adapted every situation, and controlled the battlefield without firing a single traditional weapon. On Earth, Dr. Ramirez activated the next stage. "Phase 3 begins now," she said. Energy conduits shifted subtly, creating zones that gently corralled ships into predictable paths. Cloaked scout ships moved silently among the fleet, sending real-time updates to adjust corridors and traps. One by one, Zarkonian vessels became caught in invisible mazes, engines malfunctioned under unseen pressure, weapon systems went offline without warning, and crews were left powerless. Ships drifted into collisions or gently trapped zones, immobilized but intact. From the bridge of the Dread Sovereign, Tharok watched in disbelief. "They are controlling everything," he whispered. "Not with weapons, but with their minds, their intelligence. It's unmatched." In the human command room, celebrations were restrained. No one cheered. Every human understood that the Armada was still dangerous, and every step required caution. Yet quietly there was pride. Years of research, secret inventions, and coordinated planning were now producing results beyond imagination. Scout ships reported back. "Sector 12, all ships immobilized. Sector 8, energy fields stable. Corridor Alpha, no breaches detected." Dr. Ramirez nodded. "Excellent. Keep monitoring. Do not let one slip through." The Zarkonians, trapped in space, could not believe what was happening. Admiral Tharok's voice grew harsher. "We must abandon the attack. Retreat to deep space." But even retreat was impossible. Invisible corridors and redirected forces guided ships back into containment zones. Every attempt to flee brought them further under human control. Humans had learned that brute force could not defeat the Armada. but cleverness, strategy, and adaptability could. And now, with the Zarkonians trapped, humans demonstrated the final lesson. Victory does not require destruction. It requires control, intelligence, and unity. The first ships, immobilized and confused, were studied carefully. Humans analyzed every system, every weapon, every shield. Knowledge was gained without combat, and the Armada's own technology became a source of strength for Earth. Every disabled Zarkonian vessel became an opportunity for humanity to learn, adapt, and prepare for the future. Admiral Tharok stared at his screens, the weight of his overconfidence crushing him. He had underestimated humans completely. They were not weak, not primitive, and not slow. They were clever, resourceful, and capable of adapting faster than any Zarkonian strategy could anticipate. "Signal all fleets," Tharok finally ordered, his voice strained. "Report back to the Empire. What we have faced here. Humanity. It is not what we expected." Back on Earth, humanity's leaders monitored the final stages. They ensured that all Zarkonian vessels remained under control, but no ship was destroyed unnecessarily. Humans had won, not with violence, but with ingenuity. The Armada had been neutralized, and Earth remained untouched. The public, oblivious to the true extent of the battle, continued their daily lives. Scientists and leaders, however, documented every moment. The lessons of the day would shape the future of humanity's defense and of interstellar diplomacy. Even in the galaxy beyond, the news spread. The overconfident Armada, sent to conquer a seemingly primitive world, had vanished, not by destruction, but by being outmaneuvered. Every observer knew a new lesson: never underestimate humanity. Tharok's report to the Zarkonian Empire was filled with warnings. He admitted mistakes, acknowledged the humans' intelligence, and described the traps, the shields, and the invisible control that had neutralized his fleet. For the first time, the Zarkonians had learned humility. On Earth, Dr. Ramirez and her team studied the remaining fleet, preparing to learn from what remained. Humans had proven their strength not through force, but through ingenuity, and in that moment, a quiet confidence spread across Earth's command centers. Humans had survived, and they had proven that their greatest weapon was their mind. The Armada, trapped and powerless, became a symbol, a warning to other civilizations, a reminder that strength is not only measured in size or firepower, but in intelligence, strategy, and the ability to adapt. Across the galaxy, stories began to circulate. Planets whispered of the tiny blue world that had neutralized the greatest fleet ever assembled. Scholars and leaders spoke of humans with respect and caution, and in time, humanity's reputation grew, not as destroyers, but as thinkers, innovators, and survivors. Dr. Ramirez looked at the final readouts. "They are contained," she said softly, "and we have learned so much from them. Today, we have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of." Kieran smiled. "And tomorrow, we will be ready for whatever comes next." Admiral Tharok, aboard the immobilized Dread Sovereign, could only stare into the void. His fleet, once proud and unstoppable, had disappeared in an instant, not by death, but by being outsmarted. He understood now that humans were unlike any species he had ever encountered. Earth had survived, humanity had prevailed, and the galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo for generations. Overconfidence is dangerous, and intelligence, creativity, and unity are forces stronger than any weapon. From the surface of Earth, the skies remained calm. Citizens looked up at the stars, unaware of the invisible battle fought above. And yet, above them, the remnants of the Armada floated silently, a testament to human ingenuity. Humanity had proven something important. When faced with overwhelming odds, brains could overcome brawn. Strategy could defeat power. Adaptation could defeat technology. And courage, quiet, steadfast, and intelligent, could protect a planet against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The story of 164 ships vanishing in an instant became legend, not because of destruction, but because of human brilliance. Across the stars, civilizations whispered the tale of Earth and its people, a story of hope, ingenuity, and the undeniable strength of humanity. The Armada's failure was complete. The humans had endured, and the galaxy would never forget it. Earth had won, and the legacy of that day would shine brighter than any star.